Hello, welcome to the Toronto Bible Study Podcast. And today we have a friend of the show, Norman Swan, back on to talk about his writing and some other stuff like liberal politics or liberal versus conservative politics, I guess. And we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about Jesus and the Bible too, of course, on Toronto Bible Study. But Norman, tell me what's going on. Tell me about yourself first, or introduce yourself, I guess. And
Hi, everybody. My name's Norman Swan. I live on the West Coast, which is the most paused, degenerate part of the entire world, possibly. But luckily, I'm swimming through the ashes and trying to build something that's positive and hopefully enlightening. But
Yeah,
it's a rough go out here. But
yeah.
it's not all bad. I have a beautiful wife and three children. Um, my oldest daughter just got her learner's license, so watch out on the streets out there. Uh,
Yeah, I know, right? If you're in the
I'm gonna have to be
BC, just
teaching
be careful. Sorry,
her.
sorry.
Oh, I'll have to be teaching her, so hopefully that'll rub off, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. Hmm.
But yeah, things have been
Talk.
going good. I've been working. I have some opportunities coming up. Um,
Mhm.
that I might move to Sweden, but it depends on how things go. Just
Really,
it might
Sweden, interesting.
probably just be for a short time.
Mm.
But I went there last September to visit family that I met on through a genetic test because I learned that and through that I learned my great grandfather was Swedish, and
Okay.
I was able to connect with them, and I stayed with them for a week, and it was really really nice,
Mm.
good people.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, you got that Nordic blood. You're like a tall, blonde guy, blondish, white guy, right? So yeah, you look like you look like a Swede. You look like a Viking.
Yeah, I'm about half English, and then the rest
Oh,
is sort
okay,
of
okay.
a random mix of northern. So I got I'm about an eight Swedish, about a quarter Dutch and Luxembourgish, and then eight Scottish, and then the rest of me is English. Though I
Hmm.
can't trace all the English, but
Yeah.
I am a confirmed 36th great grandson of Alfred the Great, so I know that for sure.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I have the
Alfred the Great.
paperwork.
Eh? Ah, you have the paperwork? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Alvin, so the too bad you don't get any money or land for that,
Well, actually, it makes
unfortunately.
sense. It kind of makes sense because considering he's my 36th great grandfather and he owned all of England, I'm
Mm,
just one of millions of his spawn,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
live in a trailer park, so it really adds up.
So how about your well, before we get on to your writing, how about your family in Sweden? Are they like I mean,
They're
what are they all about? Like what do they do and what's their story?
they appear to be Lutherans, but I didn't really get into the details. But it was interesting to visit all the family graves and the churches. I made a point to during my trip, and I went to Iceland, England, and Sweden, and I made
Oh,
a
okay.
on purpose. I traveled to the areas I found were interesting and where there was like sort of churches and little chapels in the middle of nowhere, and I tried to like take nice photographs of them and learn all about
Mm,
them.
yeah.
And that was really interesting. A lot of Lutheran churches, obviously, in Iceland and Sweden. In the
Mm,
UK, I went to it was an Anglo-Saxon church from the year 1000, and it had been changed over the years, but it was very interesting. And I walked amongst all the graves in all these different places because I figure people usually don't do that. I think it's a good idea to honor the dead that have been there for so long and um,
yeah. It's very
just read.
interesting too. Yeah,
Yeah,
reading the inscriptions and stuff. Very interesting stuff there, right? So a thousand. So from 1,000 AD, the church. What did it
yeah.
look like?
It was
Or could you tell?
stone.
Do you remember the name of it? And I'll try to Google it right
It
now.
was in Avebury, so
Yeah, yeah, I know Avebury.
Avebury.
I know. Yeah, yeah. So then Avebury Church, Anglo-Saxon. Okay, I'll see what I can. All right, so tell me about it. What did it look like?
It had a big, what do you call it, a tower, obviously, and then it had the main body. It was in a typical form where it was like the form of the cross with the
Okay.
altar at the center.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
When I was walking around, it was interesting because I didn't know that this was common, but everywhere I went in Sweden, yeah, that's the one. Sweden,
Uh,
England, and Iceland. A lot of well, not Iceland so much, but the other two, the
mhm.
ground was sort of paved with graves. So some people would be buried inside the church, like under the church. And I
Yeah.
saw one that dated back to 1597, I believe. Yeah, I was walking in that church. No one was in there. It's
Wow.
like no one, hardly anybody visits these places. I
I know,
also
I
went to
know. You know what?
Stonehenge.
When I went to sorry, oh, you went to Stonehenge? Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let me. Yeah, I was just gonna say like, yeah, when I went to Europe, like I would visit churches, right? And yeah, they're always empty, you know. But yeah, so tell me
yeah.
about Stonehenge, bro. Tell me about that. That's awesome.
Stonehenge was very strange. I was the first one there in the morning,
Mm.
and I could actually got there. I'm one of these guys that likes to show up early, and I showed up like an hour early before they even opened, so I couldn't even
Okay.
go in. But then I was the first one in once they opened, and then I drove
Uh,
in and bought I had my ticket already, but I had to go like register for it. Got that, got on the bus to the actual Stonehenge area, and
yeah.
it's weird when you get off. There's this eerie feeling like there's like the energy in the ground almost, like
Yeah, yeah.
you can sense there was people there that like that chose this place for some reason. And it's very
Yeah,
windy.
yeah.
It's almost like you're on a windswept hill. And
Mm.
it's just an interesting expression of mankind, you know, trying to
For
reach
sure,
up,
man.
you know, trying to understand our world.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the churches though, so Avebury is this town and it's surrounded by these giant stones. They're placed there
Right,
a
yeah, they have
long
a,
time
yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah. I knew that about yeah, yeah, yeah. They're another one of those stone places, yeah. So tell me
And
about it, yeah.
the stones like surround almost the entire town. And you don't really
Okay.
know what it's about until you kind of get into it and you see like the scale. And there's this one stone that's so big it like almost juts out into the road and takes your mirrors off when you're driving down. And
Really?
obviously I was driving in England and one thing that was strange was driving on the wrong side. I kept entering my car in
Yeah.
the morning on the wrong, like on the driver
Yeah,
door
yeah,
for us.
yeah,
And then I'd be like, where'd my steering wheel go?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you can see in the pictures there, it's quite large. But I walked
Yeah,
the entire
wow.
circle and no one really knows exactly why they're there. I touched and checked every stone. I wanted to see what they all look like. I figured I'd only be there once. So
Sure.
I made sure to really get a good feel for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these funny
That's
sheep running
awesome.
around because the sheep are just running around eating the grass. They kind of like those robot lawnmowers, but they're living.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool.
And one thing I noticed about the UK, at least in Southern England, it was very
Mm.
curated. Everything's been touched by man, like every single aspect. Like
Yeah,
everything's been formed by human hands,
yeah, yeah.
which you don't
I
get in
think if
Canada.
you, yeah, you don't see that here too much, right? Yeah, but if you go, I think if you go to the north, there's some places that are a little bit more, they're country, but they're still like kind of, there's
Wild.
still everything's no, no, I wouldn't say wild. There's not too much wilderness in England, I don't think anymore, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know that much myself, but I stayed there for about 6 months a long time ago, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, these stone circles, boy, I don't know what the story is, but it sounds like some kind of druid stuff.
I think
And
it might have
this
been
is,
even, I think it came before the Druids. The Druids just sort of adopted them or something. But
oh, is that right?
from what I heard, yeah, the Druids weren't that um they were relatively recent, obviously less recent than Christianity arriving,
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, they
So
were yeah.
the druids are from like the what, the Celts, or what is what's the origin of the druids and stuff? Yeah.
I believe it's the Celts, but I'm not sure when that
Mm.
started because I think it was more nature worship or sort of
Yeah.
like pagan. It was Druids obviously pagan, but they were like a more organized version. I think they might have came
Right.
later, but I'm not quite. I've read different things over the years about uh, that are kind of contradictory, so I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna wait and
Yeah.
see it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay,
tell
so
me about
anyways,
your.
then I went to oh sorry,
Okay,
then
go
I went
ahead.
to
Yeah.
Sweden, and then after
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in the UK, I went to Sweden and this place called Smallland, which is sort of the southeast, north of Blekinge.
Okay.
My cousin lives in Kalmar, which is on the east coast, in between this little island called Uland and obviously the mainland. And so I
Mm.
went to this all these sort of Lutheran churches, and every little village, which maybe some of them only have like 5 people now, they have a whole
Mm.
church, like a whole stone church, and
Oh
those
yeah.
are really interesting to go into. Very plain on the inside, obviously, because they're not into the art, it seems. Um,
Right.
but the it was interesting how they're all almost exactly the same, like they're sort of cookie cutter, old,
Uh,
obviously, and some of them have been adapted from older sort of ruins. But I was able to go to this one called a place called Torsos, which is looks like Torsos, but the A at the end has a circle above it, a
yeah.
ring.
Yeah.
And that's where my great grandfather was born. And I was able to go to
Okay.
that church and find the family grave and visit them in a sense, right?
Is, is this the kind of thing you were looking at, or?
Uh, yeah, well, sort of. It's the place I was in was Small Land, Smaland. That's the province or historical province. No, just
Uh,
one. No L's, no L's. SMA.
uh,
There
no
you go. Yeah.
L's? Okay.
No, you're good there. You're good. Small. It's like Small Land.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like that area right there. But they all pay their tithes, which I was surprised that that is still done.
Hmm.
Um, and I went to Kalmar
Apparently, yeah.
Slot in Kalmar, and it was like this really old fortress that's sort of poking out into the sea.
Yeah?
And they have obviously the king had a church inside the castle as well. And
Wow.
see that skinny island? It's called Uland. It's
Okay.
sort of right. That's Gotland right there. Sorry. But Uland is just sort of that one right off the coast.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
there's
okay.
Kalmar. Yeah,
Scotland. This is Kalmar.
yeah.
So,
So
oh,
yeah,
interesting.
I
Uland,
went there also.
Uland.
Oh, yeah, Uland.
This is
Yeah.
it, right?
And sorry.
Oh, this is it, right? Uland?
Yeah, and I went there. And there's an old from 700 AD, like a Viking fortress. For I guess there used to be some sort of trade route that used to go on the south end, and
Uh,
I think it's called Eketorpsboye, which is
okay.
EKE, and then TORPS, and then that's all one
Yeah.
word. And then
I
the
don't know why
Boya is
that is.
BORG.
Um, EKE, Eketorp,
Yeah. And then
Boyland?
BORG. No, just
Uh,
BORG. I just had
Eket.
that's this, and I always said Eketorpsborg. Yeah, there. I went there.
Oh
Um,
wow, that looks awesome, man! Wow, that's so cool. I love that. I love the history stuff because I love reading about these ancient battles and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
I mean, it connects you to humanity, right? Because
uh,
like think about like, and then when you're there, there's no concrete. It's just these stones flat that are flat that they stack together. And
yeah,
it's sort of a trade that they do there because they have a lot of stone in small land
yeah.
and they make these rock walls. But you have to like
Oh,
stack the stones right, and they can only do a certain amount per day because it just takes forever.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But the funny
Like they
thing is,
cut the.
there was an
Go
interesting
ahead.
contrast with this place because they had a weird feminist art exhibit in the building, not this building, but the sort of the entrance building down the road from this place. And it was like
Yeah,
it was about having abortions and stuff. It was really creepy. And
really?
oh yeah, it was really brutal. But that's the thing with Sweden is artists are sort of sponsored by the state, and so you get these
Mm.
weird feminists doing art, and they're like
Yeah, yeah.
glorifying terrible things a lot of the time.
Oh
But
man,
I
brutal.
was there with my cousin, his daughter, and his wife, and they all thought it was creepy as well.
Yeah. All right. At least, yeah. At least there's some people in Sweden that are still down. You know. But it's weird how
Well,
like. Go
the
ahead. Go ahead.
southeast is
Yeah.
very conservative.
Oh, is that right? Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So yeah. So tell me about. Okay. Talk to me about your writing, man. Like
Oh
you're
yeah,
writing about. Yeah.
I've been writing for this website called praxarchy.com. That's PRAXARCHY.com. and it's a
Mm-hmm.
group of sort of right-wing dissidents. Essentially, they don't brand it like that, but that's basically what it is. And
Yeah.
as a result of a essay I wrote called Exodus, which is about sort of forming a colony in South America in an area where no one really lives right now. I
Sorry,
was I
Praxar,
P R uh, yeah
P,
Praxarchy.
oh, Praxarchy, I see, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
so
it
yeah,
is.
keep going, keep going.
So that's my most recent article right there, actually, man, woman, and the interregnum terrans. Um,
Okay.
it's not the biggest, but the ones that got me into a event or a conservative sort of conference in Tennessee called Schildings.
Mm-hmm.
That was my Exodus article, but I also put this other one in I called Interregnum, where I kind of criticized democracy as what I call indefinitive, meaning that there's no leader or there's no place where the buck ends. Essentially, there's
Mm-hmm.
always the bureaucrats sort of always keep pushing it off and pushing it off, and then eventually ignoring it. And I found this happen a lot during COVID when I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to appeal that I had rights, and every time I get to that point, they would just basically ignore you or ignore me,
Yeah.
and I found that really annoying. So I lost a lot of. Well, I mean, I didn't have a lot of faith in democracy up to that point, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But that completely destroyed any faith I did have. So this article is
Yeah.
about trying to get women and men to sort of see each other as like the Adam and Eve pairing. I didn't mention that in there. I always try to not be right direct with that, but that's basically my
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to get at here. How like women and men obviously will conflict in a relationship, and that's part of maintaining a relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
this is necessary because if women and men don't conflict, there's no woman to conquer the 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 way sometimes men will get a little feminine,
Yeah, yeah.
and the woman will destroy that in the man, so it
Mm-hmm.
destroys that, and then the man will also help destroy the masculinization inside of a woman that might come out, and
Yeah,
having a
sure.
relationship itself helps to keep that balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean other things as well, because there's all this sort of rhetoric about, oh, have it so bad or women have it so bad. It's like, no, man, we all have it so bad. We're in a fallen world, and we have to try to make things work, and we work together.
Yeah.
It works so much better.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
my
Yeah.
article, but my articles generally are sort of on the conservative band. I try to come up with something new. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to repeat unless I have a theme, because sometimes I have like a Caesar theme. Like I want to figure out how to get the Caesar to arise so we can get through this chaos. Um, and so I'll
Yeah.
write about that theme. But
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, I try to be a little bit. I try to bring new breaking sort of thoughts that pop in my head and put them up there.
What do you think
But
about
anyways,
stuff like what do you think
yeah,
about stuff like I don't know, like okay, I get it. You're almost kind of like reacting to the rise of the left, like the rise of the insane left, right? But
yeah.
what do you think about stuff like Pizzagate and those kind of things, you know? I'm not trying to say I endorse those ideas, but just tell me
Well,
about it. Yeah.
I don't know. I tell you to I don't know much about it. It hasn't
Hmm.
been much on my radar. I'm aware of it, but I
Hmm.
don't know much about it. I mean, if it's happening, that's terrible, and hopefully we can stomp that out. But I don't know. I haven't done.
Yeah.
That's not been in my realm. But I'm
Yeah.
supportive of looking into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So you're focusing more on the politics economics aspect, right?
Yeah,
Or what
and
is it? Yeah.
well, my thing right now is that I want to build. So I've been working. I've been thinking of starting a. I'm working on starting a company, which I'm going to call Black Swan Events, and
Okay.
which is supposed to be a funny name. But then, uh, but basically, what I want to do is I want to get sort of dissident speakers, and then sort of pay for them to go to an area and do like a speech or a presentation, and
Hmm.
sell tickets to that to help fund it. Not to make money. It's not about making money. It's just about creating like a market for this sort of thing. Like how Jordan
Okay.
Peterson does that thing now, where he goes around and he makes like millions of dollars, right? I don't want to make millions of dollars, but I want to work
Yeah,
with
you can
that
make
market,
something.
right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a market for it for sure. So
I mean, if it got big enough
what
and I could make a living, I would do that, but it's not
yeah,
really viable. Got to have a day job right
yeah,
now.
yeah. But what's Peterson doing? What were you gonna say? What's he saying? What's he doing now? I don't
Well, he
really
has
keep
these.
track of him. Okay,
He
yeah.
almost has he has these speaking events that are essentially like rock concerts. And they're not rock
Mm.
concerts. Like I've been to one because my wife got tickets.
But they're big,
But
yeah. They're very big, yeah.
yeah, like thousands
Tickets,
of
yeah.
people, they just hang
Mm.
on his every word. But he's much more. I gotta say, he's much more based in his um in his private events than he is in public.
Mm.
You know, he's probably like 25 to 50% more based.
Mm.
So he does definitely have a public facing persona that I guess to keep himself safe, you know, from
Mm.
whoever's trying to take him down.
You're,
Um,
you're you're an admirer of his, eh? Or what would you say?
some I think he's useful. I think that you can't rely on any man of Earth, but like it's good to have different perspectives, and he can help you
Mm.
think a little differently, especially if you're like lost
Yeah.
or have nowhere to start. He's definitely a good starting point. Eventually, you
Mm.
get to a point where you know you outgrow the house of your father, and you have to go out into the world.
Yeah. I would say. I hope that. I mean, I think you're right. Like people needed somebody to kind of explain to them or sort of give an intellectual sort of expression of things that they were feeling about the way the left dominates our culture now, and so he was good in that sense, like he's explaining to them why is it possible that maybe feminism is not as accurate as we're being told, right? Or something like that, but I think in a
Mhm.
lot of ways it's like I see him as kind of controlled opposition. What do you
Yeah,
think?
definitely to some degree, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think, but even then, I think in being there, if he's step one, then that's if you don't get to step one, sometimes it's hard to get out of zero.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah. No,
having
for
him
sure.
there definitely, yeah. I mean, a lot of people I know that are in this sphere that I'm in now, it started with him or maybe just before that, and they saw him as like the stepping stone to get to the next thing
Mm.
in terms of like the seeking of truth or whatever. And I'm not saying he
Yeah,
knows everything. Obviously, I don't think he's anything really that special, but he's just a
mm.
starting point
Yeah,
for
yeah.
many.
I think he's actually confusing a little bit because of the way he talks about some of the things, like his explanation of postmodernism and Marxism and stuff. It's just a little bit confusing for people. You know what I mean? The people listening
Yeah.
will they won't understand those concepts yet. But if people listen to him and they get the ideas and then they continue to explore, like you're saying, like outgrow him, right? Then I see it
Hmm.
as good. But if people go and they hero worship him, and I've seen that kind of thing, right? And I don't like that.
Yeah. Well,
But
at
anyway.
one point, I thought when I was sort of into him and not into the other stuff, if he had said something like, um, "Men, you should march on Ottawa," I would have fucking done it. I would have got everyone I known
Yeah,
and just like headed straight to there. That was a couple of years before the COVID lockdowns, but
right.
at that point I was willing to do it because I was like, well, if he's calling for that, and I think he's pretty reasonable at least at the time. I thought,
Mhm.
well, what do I have to lose at this point? You know, who's going
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
the guy who says that?
yeah. That's true. Now, who else is gonna stop? But Hey, what do you think about what happened with the truckers and stuff? Or what was your impression of that? Did we talk about that last time? Can't
No, I don't
remember.
think it. I think that was before.
Yeah.
Maybe it was during. It
Hmm.
was during COVID, so it might have not happened yet. But the
Mm.
trucker thing, I think was. There's two thoughts about it in my mind. One, it really showed the weakness of our democracy
Yeah.
in that one, they don't actually stand up for your rights to
Oh yeah.
if you actually oppose them, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
two, they kind of in some sense won, even
Mm.
though because the government was forced because the government's run by foxes. So there's two sort of forces. There's foxes and lions. Lions are like
Mm.
kings and people like that that are not afraid to use force to do what they think is right. And
Right.
foxes are people that despise using force and they'd rather use trickery
Right.
and sort of skullduggery.
Hmm.
And so they had to use force on these guys. and everyone saw that it was crap, like bull crap. Like everything was like Mendocino was lying. All these people were lying about what was happening, saying it was funded by Americans. Which, hey, I don't even care about. I think that's fine. But they were actually lying about that because
Yeah.
they're trying to and they tried to play off like the sort of the propagandizing hate that people put towards Americans, which
Mhm.
I'm actually well, I'm 3/8 American myself, and I
Mm.
just see that as just fundamentally wrong
Oh
because
yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
Americans are flawed as anybody else, but they're mostly good people. In
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
case, these people would be funding us, trying to get away from the totalitarianism that was sort of emerging.
Mm.
So they go and bust up all the trucker guys. They bust their faces. They break their
Mm.
trucks, smash their windows, throw them in jail, throw them out in the middle of the snow, and like say, figure it out.
Yeah.
And jail people that were organizers, which is total nonsense, and totally like sort of kangaroo free trials. And then they said, then they started getting rid of all the lockdown stuff, and they tried to claim that the truckers had no effect on this and it was happening anyways. Well, I don't
Mhm.
think it would have happened anyways. I think if the truckers hadn't done what they've done, we might still be dealing with this, you know. And like the way they discriminated against people for like wanting to have bodily autonomy or wanting to have freedom of movement. Like, when was that going to end? Well, I don't think
Yeah.
it was. I think they would have just kept doing it and they would have doubled down.
Mhm.
So, in a lot of ways, the truckers, although they somewhat failed and somewhat succeeded, they were willing to make the sacrifice. They took the cross on their back and dragged it up the hill and like
Mhm.
took the punishment, right? And not a
Mhm.
lot of people are willing to do that. So if you want to live like Christ, you got to do
Mhm.
Christ-like things.
Yeah, that's right. I admire the ones on the ground. I do think that also was a kind of controlled opposition movement, but I admire the guys on the ground that were out there really suffering for the thing. I feel
Yeah,
bad for them.
it is sort of controlled opposition to some degree, but I don't think our government didn't have a lot of control over it. You can kind of tell they
Mm.
were very nervous. But yeah, the guys on the ground that were really into it, they they really inspired me to sort of start to do stuff as well. Though I'm going to try to
Yeah,
be smart about it and do things from behind the scenes, so I'm not taken out because I have a family to look after and all this other
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah. That's
yeah,
the thing. I mean, there was like this thing where they were like what were they doing? Like freezing people's bank accounts if they donated to them and stuff. Like what
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
nonsense? It's so
Was
fascist. Like, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, total garbage. Like imagine. Let's say that they imagine the maximum amount of damage that the truckers could have done. Just think about the
Mm.
maximum amount of damage that could have possibly been if they were if they were absolutely ruthless. Now,
Mm.
now you think about what damage our Canadian financial system has been dealt permanently for like
Mm.
investment,
Yeah.
like in terms of people, anyone that has a brain that
Yeah.
that values one their freedom of like expression, their
Mm.
logos. Now they're not going to invest here. It's now all
Yeah.
we have left is Chinese billionaires buying up all our real estate. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
pretty
brutal.
sad. It's pretty sad,
Yeah,
man. But hey,
like
so okay. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I just the real estate just made me think of the 'cause I did a article in my Substack,
Mm.
and it was basically about infrastructure,
Mm.
and I've done a little bit of work with infrastructure numbers, and if you base it on like, so you can't really, it's not exact, it's a correlation. So if you think people need water, and we expand water infrastructure at a certain rate per year, and
Mm.
it's supposed to try to match the population. But the problem with water pipes is that they degrade about 2% a year, and we repair them about 0.5% a year. So we actually have a degradation in our water systems by 1.5%. Now,
Oh.
immigration's approximately 10% every 3 years now of our entire population is
Mm.
immigrated into the country. So I extrapolated those numbers to see if this could continue, right? Hypothetically. And
Mhm.
what I found is within 30 years, we'd have an infrastructure deficit of something like 150%.
Wow,
So
man.
Now, what that means is essentially the way we're doing things now is impossible to continue
Yeah.
unless we massively expand infrastructure, and doing that in the first world countries is incredibly expensive,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is going to make it so that those third world countries are going to look like really good prospective places to live. So people will just not come anymore, or people from here will start moving there, right? Because
Yeah,
you get way
yeah.
better bang for your buck. So
Yeah.
what it came down to was something like, so imagine you need 2 liters of water to live, right?
Mm,
And that's what you're getting right now.
mm.
Um, by the time 2056 rolled around, you still need 2 liters of water to live, but you'd actually be in debt, zero point 0.8 liters of water per day.
Wow.
So that just means it's an impossibility, and that
Yeah,
starts
yeah, yeah.
happening around 2035.
Hmm. Well, isn't
Yeah,
that their you know that whole Agenda 2030 thing where they're like pushing for that? Like, have you heard about that?
yeah. That's what I started thinking. Like, what is this on purpose?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's certainly on purpose. Certainly it is. I mean, the whole thing from mass immigration from the third world to the white countries, and then all this stuff is on purpose. All this stuff is on purpose. Multiculturalism, all this stuff, you know. The only question is why, right? Now, when we look at the plans of groups like that, groups like the IMF and stuff, we can see the kind of surface level of why they do things, you know.
hmm
I would say it goes a lot deeper than that too, but of course, it does seem like they do kind of want to set up some kind of like basically neo-feudalist communist system all over the world. You know what I mean? Or I don't know how to even describe what the kind of system they're trying to set up, but what do you think about it? I'm sure you've probably done more looking into it than I have.
Well, from what I can tell, so there's this weird contradiction that they constantly say, where they say like, oh, we don't have enough people, so our
Yeah,
birth rates are too
yeah,
low, so we have to import more people. But they're importing
yeah,
adults, right? Now,
yeah, yeah.
when say if I have 3 kids already, so let's say I have 2 more kids. Well, how
Mm,
much do I have to expand my infrastructure to be able to afford that? Not much, it turns
mm.
out, because I already have all the infrastructure here because I've already had 3 kids, right? And even if
Right.
they got old and they couldn't afford a house, they can still live with me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a 30 something, 20 something year old immigrant from Africa, you're coming here, you need a
Mm.
house right now because you don't got any family to live with. So
Yeah.
everything's much more expensive. So all this stuff they think they're saving for paying off boomer pensions is
Hmm.
actually going to cost a lot more in the long run, and it's costing us that now.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why people have fewer children during sort of a economic downturn is because they
Mm.
can't afford it. But what that
Yeah.
does, it lowers the population. Then the pressure on the kids that do exist is less. So then what happens is maybe you have a low birth rate now, but the
Mm.
next set of population will have
Right.
possibly a higher birth rate, right? Because now you have more opportunity. If I had a
Yeah.
5 acres and a farmhouse, I would have like 6 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids. I don't as many kids as I'm provided, I will have.
Hmm. Right.
But do I want to jam 8, 9, 10 kids in a trailer? I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to be good. It's going to be
Yeah. Yeah.
detrimental to all of them. And, though I would
Yeah.
if I was provided with that. But
Sure. Sure. No, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, I mean,
so it is replacement, right? Because they're replacing the kids I could have for these people from other
with these
countries.
third world people, yeah, maybe. I
Which I
don't.
don't, I know,
Is
and
it
I don't
replacement?
mind actually. I don't mind a little bit of immigration because it's not bad. It's good
Uh,
to have new skills and stuff. I get it, but I don't want to have my entire population replaced.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Of course not. Of
it's just
course not.
like
Is it replacement or is it like white genocide or what is it?
I'd say it's both.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Well, not just white genocide, but just like Western cultural genocide. I consider you Western cultural a person, and
Sure.
if you have no room to grow your family, I
Hmm.
consider that essentially genocide as well. It's like putting
Hmm.
too many. It's like you have a nice environment full of animals, and then you just start pumping it full of like a different species that just has no moral similarity to yourself or ourselves,
Hmm.
and then we're sort of overrun because we're the nice friendly animals and we take care of each other, but then you have this other one who's ravenous. Not to
No,
dehumanize
no,
them,
no.
but
Yeah, no,
to,
no, no. They're on their. They're like hungry. They're hungry, right? That's why they come here, right? And so they're gonna
yeah,
do what
I
they
can't
have to
blame them.
do. Yeah, yeah. They're
They're
gonna do what
doing
they have to do.
they're doing exactly what I would do if I was in their situation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
totally
exactly.
rational.
Exactly. It's just the rational, exactly. It's the rational thing to do. Or they've been led to believe that. I don't think it's going to
Yeah,
work out as well for them as it did for my parents' generation, you know? And even their generation, like they don't realize what they kind of traded, you know? Like they came here and they got a house and like I guess they had a careers or whatever and they had some kids and so I guess they think that it was good.
yeah.
But like for example, like I mean, I don't know. The countries that we left, like the countries that we left, they were being pressured. They want to create a situation where these people want to come to the West, right? So at the same time as they lower the immigration barriers in the West, they put pressure on those third world countries to the push factors, as they say, you know, the push factors for people
Yeah,
to emigrate, right? So
yeah.
they increase those in those countries, you know. They increase the instability, they increase the economic sort of
Turmoil.
instability, you know. Yeah, turmoil. Yeah, exactly. And so then the people are like, well, okay, I guess if we go to the West, that's the best opportunity for us. And so they come out here and they become worker drones here, and those countries suffer too because all like the people that came here are the people that were the kind of the most smartest people usually, the most well educated, the most with some
Productive.
money, you know. Yeah, yeah. So they're the ones that come here, and then those countries suffer for that too. So it's just everything. It's just like they're just creating like a disaster everywhere in the West and in those countries, you know.
Oh
So
yeah, imagine you're in a small town in India and you get one guy raised up to become a doctor.
yeah.
And then your communities put resources into that, and then he just moves to Canada because he can make a little bit of money, and now you have no
Hmm.
doctor. You know, your
Yeah.
best brains are leaving.
And then he comes here and he's driving a cab or whatever.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That was the whole that was the cliche, right? But like
Or he's even working as a doctor and he still can't afford a house because it's $1 million
yeah.
for, you know.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, man. Exactly. So it's like nobody wins. Nobody at our level wins, but at the top level, I guess they think they're gonna win out of this because then they'll have us all kind of we're all just like scrambling for scraps, right? And so then we're weak, and so then we're easy to control at that point. You know, that's what I think they're setting up. You know.
I think we're in line to do a French Revolution, essentially. I think it's unavoidable at this point. I think they're literally at the point where they're going to say, "Let them eat cake," and we're going to be like,
Mm.
"What?"
Yeah, I know,
You
but
know,
I don't know. You know, you can see the people just saying, "Okay, I'll eat whatever bugs you guys want to feed me, and I'll move into the pod, you know, and then as long as I can have my internet gaming and my you know and my whatever." The
the bug.
people's like I think people will in another generation or so, people will eat the bugs and move into the pod and just
Well,
because there are our goals, our dreams are being slowly lowered, right? Like what we want out of life and stuff is just being lowered. You know, people are now
well,
willing to just live on the internet. You
we
know,
can't even eat. The thing is, most humans can't even digest bug protein. So
oh
it's
the
like
bugs thing, yeah, the bugs thing is terrible. That's
it's
such a terrible idea. I
it's
know it's bad for
it's
us
so
too. Yeah,
flawed. Yeah,
it's
this
yeah
like
it's just ridiculous. But they want to feed us garbage that we don't that's not going to make us strong, right? They just
soy
want to
slop,
weaken us. Sorry.
soy slop.
Yeah, like it's like it's like or that thing. Remember that movie Soylent Green is Humans? You ever
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that thing?
it's Soylent
Yeah,
Green the
dude.
movie.
The Soylent Green movie, yeah.
It's made out of people. Uh,
Yeah. Oh man, dude. That'd be so bad, man. But like that I can see our society progressing to that. I mean, the way it was, like, you know, they were there. It wasn't just it wasn't unrealistic like some of the dystopias, right? Like it's just like people living in horrible overcrowded conditions. They're in poverty and they're just scrambling just to eat, just to have food to eat, right? And when you have
yeah,
everybody in that situation, they can't organize to oppose you, you know? because they're just scrambling just to survive, right? What do you think?
Yeah, it's well, I think there's a lot of these organizations like the Lions Club and Kiwanis and Elks. I'm not sure what they have back east, but I'm pretty sure Kiwanis and Lions. And
Mhm.
a lot of them are completely unmanned. They still exist legally as an entity, but there's no one
Mm.
working with them. So I
Mm.
think one thing I learned at this conference I went to this year, last in June,
Mm.
is that there's these sort of dead organizations that could be captained by entrepreneuring individuals and then turned for purposes that serve, like, let's say these communities that we're talking about here, the future bug pod people,
Yeah.
so that maybe we can turn it around.
That's interesting that
So,
you named those clubs though, because those are all branches of like Freemasonry, you know? I mean, like
oh
the
yeah,
Elks and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
they're. I'm just talking about the dead ones because there's just no one that lives in that town anymore, but still is. You can take it over,
Yeah.
change the name, change the
Yeah,
constitution, do whatever you want with
yeah.
it, but
Do
the
it.
legal charitable status, right, it's still there. And then you
Ah,
can like use it
interesting,
to fund
interesting.
right-wing groups or something like that, you know.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting idea. Okay, but yeah, but listen, I know you gotta go at 12 at 3 or whatever, 12:30 for you guys, right? So
I got a good 19 minutes if you're down.
yeah. So well, that's what well like that's why I know we don't have too much time, but I wanted to ask you about Christianity and stuff, just to stay on the channel topic, right? So
Yep.
just to start, have you ever heard of this thing called free grace? Did we talk? I don't think we talked about it last time, but you ever heard of it?
No, I never heard of it.
So this is the idea. So I guess you've heard of this idea that like some of the Christians, they think you have to do so-called works to go to heaven, like the Catholics. You think you have to get baptized, go to mass, and die in a state of grace, and these kind of things if you want to go to heaven. You know?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and Eastern Orthodox, they have that kind of thing too. Like you have to get baptized and stuff like that. You have to do good works. And then the thing with the Protestants was that they were supposedly they were saying that it's faith alone. Okay, faith alone, not by works, but only by faith. Okay, so you believe in
Hmm.
Jesus, you believe the promise that He gives us of eternal life, right? And then you go to heaven. And what your works that you do, and like you should do good works. They're telling you you should do all these good works, but it's not necessary for you to go to heaven. Okay,
Hmm.
you with me so far? Okay. But
Yeah.
then the Protestants, what they did was they said, okay, yeah, you don't get saved by faith alone, or you don't get saved by works. It's only by faith alone, right? To get saved, to get born again, and then you're going to heaven. But once you get born again, once you're saved, you will do good works because the Holy Spirit is going to come and dwell in you, and then you're just going to do good works. And if you don't, that means you're not really saved. Okay?
Mm.
Okay. So now
Yep.
there's this thing called free grace. Well, there were a few Christian groups that used to teach against that and say, no, it's faith alone. So even once you get saved, you're saved. Even no matter what you do afterwards, it doesn't matter. You could get saved, just believe the gospel, get saved, and then go right back to your sin life. Just live like a devil for the rest of your life, and you'll still go to heaven. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you live well, if you live like a faithful Christian, there's rewards in heaven, and there's even rewards in this life too, blessings and stuff. You know, and there's consequences for sin in this life. But once you die, you're going to heaven, no matter what, because you believed in the gospel. You know. So that's called
Yeah.
free grace now. Or now that's called free grace. And then that's kind of splitting up too, but what do you think about that, man? I like to ask people about it. I'm a free gracer, by the
It's
way. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I think it's interesting. I mean, the thing with doing works, if you're doing works to get somewhere, that means you'd have to really be considering your faith, which I consider immaterial, to the world,
Mm,
as material. You'd have to like tie it to
yeah.
materiality, and I think that doesn't make a lot of like fundamental sense.
Mm,
So I think it makes a lot more sense to sort of uh, okay, so let's say that you're filled with you're forgiven, you're saved, right?
Hmm.
I think it makes more sense that the voluntary input of good works makes makes more sense to me than so you just do it because it's the right thing to do
Right,
in
right,
your
right.
mind.
Not because you want to go to heaven. You're not doing good works because of that, but just because you out of gratitude for what Christ did for us, right? He died on the
Yeah,
cross, right?
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. You do it for that reason, and I think one of the things I actually brought up in my speech in Stildings was
Mm.
this idea of the material world and the immaterial world. And when I was talking about like the founding a new colony in South America or whatever, it doesn't really matter where.
Oh
I
yeah.
mentioned how like any sort of governance model that you want to make, you'd want to make one that would concentrate, that you want to make part of it so it concentrates on the material world. So I call
Hmm.
this the Baron, like the Baron of a manor. Like
Okay.
so you have the Baron, and he's like the Caesar, right?
Right.
And then you have the cleric or whatever you'd want to call your religious leader, and
Mm.
he would be concentrating on the immaterial.
Right.
Now, now, if you look at like I don't know a lot about the scripture, but from my interpretation, you're supposed to go out into the world and be plentiful or whatever, um,
Yeah, yeah. Be
have
fruitful and
kids and
multiply. Be fruitful and
yes,
multiply. Yeah. Hmm.
exactly. So there is a material aspect that God wants you to go out and do that. So
Hmm.
you need a sort of organizer and protector that on
Hmm.
on the earth that keeps you safe so that you can do that. So that's what
Yeah.
government and Caesar's for. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you don't want to get too far away from your your immaterial spiritual aspect because you'll like you will starve to death from not enough food. You can starve your soul
Yeah.
from not enough faith.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
So I did talk about this. I was like, okay, well, if we do form a community, you want to have a religious aspect. I don't, to be honest, like I don't have any. I get a lot of I get a lot of pushback for this because I don't know why I keep it, but I tell people I'm a postmodern Christian, but that doesn't mean I'm a postmodernist. All it means is that I'm a Christian, but I don't
Hmm.
care. I don't really care if you're this Christian or that Christian. As long as you
Yeah, yeah.
believe the fundamental things, that's fine. And what by postmodern, all I mean is that I live in the postmodern era.
Hmm.
So some might say I should say I'm a Christian in postmodernity, but I don't know. I don't. I think in English I
Yeah.
can say either way. But either way, I get a lot of pushback for that. But my point is,
Yeah.
we this is the era. This is the ocean in which we swim, right? I can't help the
Yeah, yeah.
fact that there's lefties out there trying to like trans kids, and I
Hmm.
I can try to do my best, but I can't convert them. I have to realize that that's the real world. I
Hmm.
can't exist as if that's fake. That's actually happening. and
Yeah, yeah.
and there's ways to stop it. And if I don't acknowledge it, then I can't stop it. So that's what anyway. That's one of
Hmm.
my goals, and um, I hope that answered your question.
No, that's really
That's sort.
interesting. That's interesting that you have those ideas like forming a kind of a commune or something like that, or not a commune, but it's not communist, right? But it's like
No, it's like a town. It'd be like a
a
market economy,
community.
obviously. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting, man. That's a good idea, though. But it's hard to put together those things, and yeah, I know it's like
Well, there is one
while
actually right
you're
now
while you're here. Oh yeah, there's a few of those, right? But I mean,
in
while you're
Paraguay.
here,
There's
you're just trying to live, right? But where's the one you're talking about?
there's
Which
one in Paraguay called El Paraíso Verde, and it's a group of Germans, originally Germans, like Swiss, Austrians, and Germans that escaped during COVID because they were tired of all the lockdowns and whatnot. So
yeah.
they went to Paraguay and made this town. A lot of them are older professionals, and they have like a lot of industrial knowledge. So they built wells and lakes, and this whole town now. There's about 300 people. There's Canadians and Americans there as well,
Hmm.
and it's sort of a libertarian sort of paradise, I suppose. Well,
Yeah.
now Paraguay's tax rate is between 8 and 10%, depending on how much you make per year. So that's really
Hmm.
low. And then this
Yeah.
town charges 5% extra on top of that, and what they use that to help develop the infrastructure.
Hmm.
But I know a guy that's moving there in December.
Oh
His
yeah.
name's his name on Twitter is Matteo Pellegrino. He's actually a Belgian,
Okay.
and so he's moving there to try it out and see how it goes.
Hmm.
But it's sort of, but the funny thing is, it's actually in the area that I recommended, the general area, which is sort of the Brazilian, Paraguayan, Uruguayan, and Argentinian southern area.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's so far it's pretty successful. They have a over 100% year over year GDP growth,
Oh
which is
yeah,
still hard.
really?
Yeah,
No, that's
it's
pretty good, right? Isn't it?
yeah.
This guy?
Okay, that's. I don't think that's anything to do with it. It must just be the same name. But yeah, if you want to search it, the place is EL.
Hmm.
Don't know if that's him.
Yeah.
Might be the Mateo Pilgrim. No, that's definitely
Anyway,
not. But if
yo.
you EL, then Paraiso,
Hmm.
then space and Verde, Verde.
Uh, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, okay.
So
There's
it's a
a
gated.
wiki. Yeah, let's check
Yeah,
out the website.
it's a gated community, and they have security and stuff. They have an industrial zone. That's the
Uh-huh.
founder right there.
Yeah.
They have kind of a weird layout, but I mean, it's not expensive. I think $50,000 you can basically buy a land plot and a house built for you.
Hmm.
But they have
Wow.
connections with the local government. So like the provincial governor is like their friend and likes them.
Hmm.
So that
How
is
do they
sort of
decide?
important.
How do they decide who gets to move in?
You just
They.
apply and you just
They
apply
apply.
and then try to. I don't think they really block anybody, but they definitely probably they take people that are sort of Western, right? So like you'd be able to go there, no problem.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Europeans, Canadians, Americans.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's
Interesting.
not if you go there and fail, then I mean you fail. So
Yeah.
that's the harsh part about it. But
Right, right, right. Wow. But what? So okay. But what's their religious thing? Do they have any religious stuff there?
this group is very. I think they have a church or something, but it's independent. So you can form your own. They don't have any restrictions. If you want to form your own church, you can just go there and start a church, and people probably go because there's not much else to do there. So I mean, it would be a good place to proselytize, right?
Maybe. Probably not. I don't think. I don't know. What's the population?
Around
Any
300,
idea?
but they're aiming for 6,000.
Okay, okay, okay.
There's just 300 right now, but it's
Mhm.
growing.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're
Wow,
serious
man.
too. Like they go around with their because they've obviously built wells for themselves that are 100 meters down, so they get the good
Hmm.
water. But that
Yeah.
now they have these machines, so they just go around to little villages in the middle of Paraguay and they build them nice wells for free.
Okay, okay.
These sort
Yeah.
of crazy efficient German guys, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They don't like
That's awesome.
these people are used to having to like filter and boil their water, and their water's dirty, but now they have clean, fresh water from way down below. So
Nice,
it's making the
nice.
world a
That's
better place, right? Through their work.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's great. Yeah, nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing
And
wrong with
also
that.
the value of, for your dollar down there for land
Mm.
is like
Yeah, yeah,
incredible. Like,
yeah. I
well,
know.
I live in a trailer here in BC, and it's about $300,000, right?
Oh.
And I don't own the land. And if I took
Mm.
that just the $300,000, if I sold my place and then I bought a place in Brazil, I could get a palatial mansion with a
Yeah,
swimming
yeah,
pool, like an acre, maybe even a farm in a rural area,
yeah.
and way cheaper taxes and no
Yeah.
building restrictions.
I know it's nuts. It's crazy, man. It's
Meanwhile,
absolutely
meanwhile here
crazy.
I try to put up a fence, and then you get restricted. You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you get a permit for that fence,
Yeah,
buddy?
exactly. Yeah. You know what's funny? I was talking to a guy at this buildings event who's an architect. He told me that
Mm.
permits and the zoning only came in around 1918 or something like that in New York City. That's where it started,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
That makes
now
sense.
it's
That makes
everywhere.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, eventually it was gonna happen. I mean, I think with the kind of governments we have, something like that would have had to have happened. With
Well,
democracy. Like,
have you
go
ever
ahead.
read The Managerial Revolution by James Burnham?
Mm-mm.
It
No.
basically he basically explains how like our economy used to sort of be run by guys like Henry Ford,
Mm-mm.
big names that owned their companies and ran everything from their own sort of perspective. But
Mm-mm.
then when they sort of get to retirement age and they corporatize, there's managers that are running the money. So then
Mm-mm.
you sort of have this revolution in our economy where managers are running everything instead of, and the owners are just sort of taking dividends. So
Mm.
the actual power now lays with the managers.
Managers, like including CEOs and stuff, you mean? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
by managers? Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
That's somewhat
CEOs are
true, I
just like
guess. Yeah,
the main head manager essentially of many
mm,
managers. Yeah.
sure, sure. But I think there's more to it. Like it's more like because most of these public companies are owned by just a few shareholders, right? And then even those shareholders are owned by other, like most of those shareholders are corporate. So then those
Yeah.
shareholders are owned by a few shareholders too. So it's all kind of like this pyramid thing, you know? Again, back to the
Hmm.
pyramid. I'm not trying to go conspiracy all the time, but I didn't want to. I wanted to avoid talking conspiracies with you, you know. But anyway, we only got 4 minutes left. You took me off of Christianity again, so
Oh yeah,
let's get
sorry.
back on. Wait, so you're postmodern Christian, right? Postmodern Christian. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, bro. Look into this free grace thing. That's the only thing. That's the only thing you're gonna fit in as, you know? Because, well, you have to ask yourself, like, do you think, like, if you died right now, are you going to heaven, or what? What's the story, or what do you think? How do you think it works?
Uh, I think so, but
Yeah,
I
you
don't
see, so
know.
you think so. You see, you don't know, right? See, that's the thing. See, that's what I'm telling you, bro. Maybe I can send you some videos or something. But
Well, put me in
I get
if you put me before a jury, I think I could convince them.
no, no. You see, that's the thing. It's not about that. It's not about what you did. It's not about what you did. It's about did you believe Jesus's promise? You know, like he's saying.
Yeah.
He's saying if you believe, if you read the book of John, read the book of John, bro, and it tells you that, right? But like you can see, it's about believing in Him. You believe in Jesus. You believe He's the Christ, the Son of God. You believe that if you have faith in Him, He gives you eternal life, and then you have eternal life. And it's
Hmm.
instant. It's instant. As soon as you come to that point where you believe that, you will instantly have eternal life, and it can never. It's eternal, right? So you can never. It can never end. That means you're going to
Yeah.
heaven. You know. But these
I, I,
people that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I believe that. Like even it's funny because I get these like when I'm writing often, I
Mm-hmm.
don't. It's almost like I'm not writing. It's like my writing is just sort of coming out of my
Yeah.
hand, but
Mm.
through something else. Not to be any blasphemous or whatever, but it
Like a
feels like
spirit, a
yeah,
spirit.
it's
You're
like
being.
because once in a while it'll just flow out like so
Mm.
fast, and I'll get like
Yeah.
a huge 2,000 word essay done in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
You
happens
know,
to me too when I write. Yeah. But I think that is just our subconscious mind and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily ascribe that to the spirit world, but it's possible. It's possible.
it feels different though. Like it feels different because I am sometimes I'm writing and I know I can feel like it's just me, but then sometimes I'm
Yeah,
writing and it's like there's something else there,
yeah, yeah.
but I don't know how to
See,
describe it.
I don't know. I don't want to ascribe that to the spirit world because whenever I think about stuff like that, I think about it as some kind of demonic thing, you know. Or that's you know
Uh,
how you ever hear how these like a lot of artists will talk about that, right? Like how they feel like they have a spirit that's making that writing their music or writing their like even Bob Dylan talked about how he sold his soul and all this stuff. You know what I mean? You ever heard about stuff like that? There's tons of
I've,
artists that
I've
talk about this. Go ahead.
I've heard of some, yeah. I've heard of some of that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think
So
it's not like that to me because it's like it's almost like sometimes when I'm writing things and it there's sort of like these truths that come out that I didn't want to
mm.
accept, but then I write them down and I'm like, yeah, that's it. And I'm
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
you almost go to tears, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I hold them back because I'm a strong, independent man, but
yeah.
but you can feel it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting, bro. I don't
I
know.
think if it
I
was
know.
demonic, I'd probably feel like a rush of something else. It's just, but you know, I
Yeah,
don't know.
something more. Yeah, who knows?
It's
Who knows? Who knows?
mysterious.
It is. It is. You never know. I mean, you're not writing about anything godly necessarily, but you do kind of try to get that message out about the truth about those kind of truths, right? So maybe,
I
maybe.
try to be instead of explicit, I try to be implicit because
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm trying to reach people that perhaps have not been reached,
Yeah, I
and
know. I know.
sometimes it's easier to take a you know the
The
dose
indirect.
slowly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. You gotta open
Yeah,
their mind to that kind of thing. Those people, they can't even. I know what you're thinking. Like, if you talk to them about Jesus or something, they'll just be like, "What? What are you talking about?" Or they'll just reject you immediately, right? That's why I
yeah,
like to. That's why I like to bring up this thing about the debate between the works and the no works thing.
hmm
Because then people are like, "Well, I never heard of that. What's that all about?" You know? Because everybody thinks you have to be good to go to heaven. You have to be a good person. You have to go to church, or you have to whatever, right? But it's like when they find out it's just about believe, just believe the promise, believe Jesus' promise of eternal life, right? Then they're like, "Wow,
yeah.
that's interesting." You know, they makes them think. But I know you gotta go, bro. But I hope I'm not keeping you too late or anything.
Well, so far I
What
haven't
were you
been
gonna
called
say?
back.
Oh, okay,
I haven't
okay.
been called back to work yet, so I think I'm okay.
All
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah. So
if you
talk
want
to
to
me.
wrap it up, no biggie. Yeah, I can talk
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
bit if you want.
I do have to. I do have to kind of go, but yeah, I got a few minutes. So yeah. Well, talk to me. Well, what's your thoughts? Well, what would you like to close off the show with, or what are you thinking about that you'd like to talk about for the last few minutes? Tell
Um,
me. It's hard. That's a hard
hold
question to answer, right?
if
But
people.
go ahead.
I think that people often get lost in modern. I don't want to call it. Okay, let's call it postmodernity,
Hmm.
and it's because they've let go of their traditions because they don't understand them.
Yeah.
But traditions, they connect you back to the very beginning
Hmm.
because your ancestors are closer to that than you are,
Yeah.
and theirs and them and their ancestors to them, and so on.
Hmm.
So, and once you let something go, it's very hard to find it again.
Yeah. I
So
know.
you want to stay grounded
Yeah.
and stay connected to your traditions, your
Yeah.
ancestors, and then therefore to God and Christ, right?
Yeah, man.
So I think
Well,
that's very important.
yeah. What I like about think about Jesus though is he's like not traditional for almost anyone, right? Even the Jews, he's not. He's kind of going against their tradition because they were all about the law, following the law, you
Yeah.
know. And he's saying,
We
no, no, no. It's just by faith in me. It's just by believing me, right? What were
well,
you gonna say?
he updated the traditions
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
created a new sort of paradigm. That's why he was big, right? He
Mhm.
changed it all.
Or that's the story we're told. I don't know. I think sometimes that's kind of a misunderstanding of the Bible too. Like people think like he comes along and he's like, you were told that if you commit adultery, that's a wicked sin. But I'm telling you that if you even look at a woman with the idea of lust in your mind, then you committed adultery in your heart, right? So the people
Mm,
think that he's going against the law. The law says don't commit adultery, and Jesus is saying no. You can't. Not only do you not commit adultery, you don't even look at the woman, right? Or with
yeah,
lust in your heart, anyway, right? But what he's really saying is he's actually explaining to them what the law was really for and what it really meant. You know, he's not
yeah,
changing the law, but he's just changing their misunderstanding of it, correcting them. You know what I mean? What do you think?
yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
going
yeah.
from the fundamental basis versus the interpretation corruption,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Humans corrupted it to this thing all about what we do and how we act, but it's really about how you are on the inside and dealing with that part of us, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a deeper element to the law
Hmm.
than simply trying to lawyer your way around it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So hey, what's a good or you know what? Let me just I'll get into your articles here on Praxarchy and I'll read some of that stuff. And my recommendation for you is the Book of John. It's not
Okay,
that long. Check it out, you know. And then next time
I have it on my
you have
phone
it
in
on your phone.
Icelandic.
Yeah. In Icelandic, that's
Yeah, it
interesting.
helped to get the English as a translation, but
Yeah. Read the King James. I recommend, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, and
I
if
think
you,
oh no, it's the Lutheran. Yeah,
oh, okay. And
I'll do it.
is it the Lutheran Bible, the
It
Martin
must
Luther
be.
Bible, the
It must be
German one?
because they're no, it must be yeah, but translated into Icelandic.
I see. Yeah.
But I have one at home. I'll just read it there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Check it out, and then next time we talk, we can compare notes. Okay.
sounds good, man. It's great chatting with you.
Brother. Yeah, man.
Love you, brother.
Thanks for coming on, brother. I love you too, man. God bless, and bless your family and everything. And thanks for coming on the show. All
Same to you.
right, and thanks for watching, everybody. Toronto Bible Study. Hallelujah.